Trade union leaders met with ministers on Tuesday for final talks regarding the Employment Rights Bill, which is set to be announced on Thursday. Keir Starmer is expected to use the bill as an opportunity to reshape the narrative around the government's accomplishments in office. Paul Nowak, the TUC's General Secretary, said Labour's workers' rights plans are hugely popular across the political spectrum, including with Tory and Reform voters. After 14 years of stagnating living standards, people desperately want to secure jobs they can build a decent life on. The government's plans to make work pay would improve incomes and the quality of work across Britain. So the bill is set to be extensive overhaul of workers' rights in generations. Sorry, the most extensive overhaul of workers' rights within generations, with new rights on maternity leave and sick pay from day one of employment, banning zero-hour contracts, apart from a specific request that an employee can make, and ending fire and rehire practices. So it will include a review of parental leave too, bereavement leave, and a new access to workplaces for trade unions to organize. Curtis, one of your favorite topics, unions. What are your thoughts?
I'll tackle the sort of first part of the question, which is can workers' rights or improving people's lives take on the conservatism and reform? I mean, yes, obviously. I mean, that's what the left has been saying for a long, long time. The liberal parties, such as Labour under Tony Blair, over time they end up becoming a so-called social progressive party. They weren't really, and kind of water down their sort of class-based politics. That's happened across Europe, even actually in the entire world, where so-called left-wing parties became more progressive parties and economically liberal. That alienated millions of people, which is why everyone knows that the Labour Party is no longer for the working class. But there were only two politicians that came to the forefront of these respective parties that wanted to bring class politics back. And that was, of course, Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders actually praised Jeremy Corbyn when he was leader in the 2017 election, saying he's finally bringing class-based politics back. And that's the thing. Labour has long abandoned that. And it's not just simply the case that, oh, we'll start talking about material needs now and suddenly all will be well. Unfortunately, you've kind of allowed the splintering and destruction of your own base that it's not going to be so easy to get these people back. I think it now goes beyond that. There are many people who are so sick and tired of the political establishment. And of course, Labour is very much within that political establishment, especially under Keir Starmer, that what can they actually do to woo these people back? And I'm really struggling to see how much they can get people back. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. But many people who are jumping ship to reform have really made their bed there. And of course, their influence wasn't even on the material basis. It's very much on identity. That's why right wing, political parties talk about culture and Britain. We've lost this, and that's going to be very difficult to fight back. However, obviously, improving people's lives is one way of doing it. I do think it's absolutely right for the Labour government to address inequality, to address austerity, all these bread and butter issues, if you
Mhm.
will, that will absolutely help. Because if they don't, they're only going to lose more support. To take on the second sort of part of the question is, look, I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing unions sort of sticking with Labour. It's a dead horse. Uh, the TOC, right? Obviously, I'm a big union supporter, but they're weak. They are so incredibly weak. And I think now is the time to just leave the Labour Party, because I understand they want to be a part of government. I get that. But it's like the Charlie cartoon clip. Charlie, and he's about to kick the ball, and the person takes it away, and he misses. You've been fooled too many times. There are Sharon Graham. I mean, I was reading a piece about this today, and in this article, it noted that, okay, well, we know that all unions aren't going to accept this severely watered down workers' package. That includes Unite leader Sharon Graham. Now, Sharon Graham at the beginning was very um, open and willing to work with Keir Starmer. In fact, it got to the point where it got a little bit sad because Keir Starmer was laughing behind her back, and she was still like, "Oh no, I can make it right. I can make it right." And she would be pissed off with Starmer, and then they'd have a conversation, and then afterwards she'd be like, "Oh, we had a very productive conversation with Keir Starmer. I think it went really well." And then literally like a day later, workers' rights have been watered down again, and she's like, "I'm really, really disappointed." So why would any union believe the Labour Party? Now, within that package, by the way, there's a policy in there that actually extends the probation period to 6 months, which makes it easier to fire people. That doesn't sound like strengthening workers' rights from day one. Now, I'm not saying it's all really, really bad, by the way. There are some obviously good policies in there. But if you're if you're coupling that with extending the probation period up to 6 months, where essentially you could be a really good worker for 5 months, but they're not satisfied with you, they can fire you. I get it. There's a small probation period. 6 months is wild. So
Mm.
I feel like if I want to talk about the US for a second, here's something that they it's going to be quite funny that I'm going to try and say Britain should emulate the US because they do a lot of things wrong. But there's one thing that I think they do right, or at least better than us, and that's unions. I feel like unions are far stronger over there. And one of the things I think is because they have unions have less sort of partisan, if you were to say. And of course, they are more affiliated with the Democratic Party, of course. But unions are supported across the political aisle, and I mean by voters. I don't mean by politicians, because you can't get the
Mm.
Democrats to be pro-union enough. Obviously, the GOP absolutely hates workers, and I note that I can't remember if it was the sort of the ceremonial crowning of Trump becoming the GOP nominee, but the leader of Teamstar Union did a speech there. I thought it was stupid because the GOP would never support unions. But there are Republican voters who are very, very strong in unions. They support that. We don't quite have that here. So what I want to see over here is unions start to really disaffiliate with the Labour Party because they're wasting their money, and build something up. Build something up on their own and try and, without trying to sound too centrist liberal, but try and build a broad coalition. Now, I completely so
Ooh,
the reason why
centrism.
well, I don't think that's centrist saying that unions should be um, popular across the board, but obviously they'll usually say like, "Oh, you need to build a coalition." They can do that because obviously, when it comes to material policy, economic policy, the majority of people are quite unified. The majority of people do want higher wages, do want to reduce inequality. These things are popular. I get it. Obviously, progressive issues are a bit more divisive, and I'm not suggesting for one moment that any of us on the left or any unions like water down their support for social issues. Absolutely not. But they can definitely build a broad coalition of all voters, whether it's reform voters, whether it's conservative voters, under the banner of class-based politics. And I think we need to revive that. And I think staying with the dead horse that is the Labour Party, one, puts them now in a corner because a lot of people are pissed off the Labour Party. They do kind of look political partisan with that. And two, the Labour Party don't really support unions either. I would like to see, though, that maybe there was more of affiliation with the Green Party. I don't know what's really going to go on with that, but I think it's time for the unions to basically turn around to the Labour Party and say, "Fuck off. You are no longer the home for working people, and you're just taking our money and doing nothing with it."
Yeah, and another annoying thing of the rhetoric around unions in the UK versus the US, right, is that sometimes even being associated by a union could be seen as toxic through, again, right wing tabloid media, right? Look at how we demonize doctors and nurses. Look at how we demonize train drivers when all they've done is use collective bargaining to, scrape some of the extra profits that these companies have been taking for themselves and obviously give it to the workers so they actually get paid a fair wage. What train drivers get is what they should get based on the way the economy has grown over the last like 20 years or so. It's just that so many other industries have been absolutely left behind. And obviously, the Daily Mail couldn't exist in the US with the concept of, oh, well, look how much train drivers are earning. Like people would clap for them, right? In the
Mm,
US, like they'd be like, yeah, look how much money they're earning. But over here, we demonize that. And after everything that happened with Thatcher and the coal miners, every nurses strike that we've had, the way we have perceived unions, and so many people see them as a bad thing, as a toxic thing. We've got a lot of damage to repair. We've got a long way to go to fix
yeah.
this. But I think we can make it there. There's a word that people use in America, and again, staying on the same topic, they call it, they say a union job. I would love to live in the UK where everyone refers to, like, they're happy that they've got a union job and it's something
Yeah.
they're really proud of. But we're a long way away from that. But we can get there. There are templates for it. We've seen the success that unions can do through collective bargaining. And,
Mm.
there's sometimes some negative sides to it. I still can't forgive some of the unions for endorsing Brexit, but that's a whole other argument that I could do for a few
But I
hours.
think that, I mean, so first of all, union density is incredibly low, and that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot of us are saying just join a union, and it's not as easy as that, because there's a reason why union density is low, is because people are not either aware of what the power of unions can do, or the narrative there is, so what? I don't want to join a union. We need to build a new movement. I feel like there needs to be a a a full-on workers' movement akin to the early 1900s, in which the Labour Party came out of. Right, the Labour Party didn't exist in a vacuum. The Labour Party was created by a coalition of communists, socialists, Soc Dems, and unionists. Right, and then the party came out of that. But obviously, the party that's come out of the union movement has turned around and tried to destroy its own union movement. So what we need to do is recapture that movement that led to the birth of the Labour Party in the first place. There needs to be a broad coalition across the entire country that unifies over workers' rights, over curbing corporate power, over redistribution of wealth and power,
Mhm.
without watering down social issues. It doesn't mean we start becoming class reductionists and start saying we don't care about social issues. No, but we can still build a coalition of workers.
Support independent media, support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.